Hey Ted,
Hello there. Can you hear me?
can hear you.
Good.
We'll be starting momentarily. We're waiting for a few more committee members.
Okay. I can understand.
Okay, how you doing today?
Well, it's been cold and nasty up here.
Oh yeah, I suppose. Did you guys get snow?
No, they
Okay, that's
promised
good.
us some and they let us down.
Oh, were you anticipating it?
Yeah,
You was gonna go make snow angels?
I don't know about that. I gave up on that back slightly after I got married. We got
Okay.
married in 1977.
Oh,
And uh, that was the year that we had three gigantic snowstorms.
Wow.
And my wife and I did go out and do snow angels in Riverside Park.
Oh, how
Oh, you
nice.
do.
Yeah, you got to realize something. I love my community, and Riverside Park is such a jewel.
It really is.
I do.
So, we brought our kids up there in the playground that we fought for. I never knew I was fighting for my kids' playground, but that's what it was.
Well, wait, so which playground?
The one at 117th Street.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's, we are so lucky to have the view and the park.
Mhm.
And, I think about the very many parks we have in our community and how few parks so many other people have.
I agree.
And we have to take care of those parks and make certain that they don't get cut out, because parks are always one of those things that are so easy to cut from the budget.
Absolutely.
Hello, hi, how's it going? How are you? Hey girl.
That's right.
I'm sorry?
Railroad Commissioner.
Hey, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've probably seen you like on line or something.
Probably, yeah.
Welcome.
Thank
you
you.
for coming. Yeah,
Hey, I'm Danielle. I'm Jordan. Nice to meet you. Good to meet you.
we're gonna get started shortly. Committee members, please make sure you sign in.
Yes,
We have in the
I think I have the less than heaviest duty
minutes, yes, minute taking tonight. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, Chris.
Yeah, I'll leave the AI.
Not a problem.
All right, we're still waiting for some folks to join us online too.
Hey, Christian. Hi, how you doing? Good, how are you? Good about your holiday. It was nice.
Yeah. Oh, that's. Yeah, I believe she was.
Good, it was low key, which was great. That sounds nice, yeah.
Also, I was gonna show you the rest of
I think if we have six, I think we're gonna have 6 people on that, so we'll have 4 on it.
Good.
We have 11 committee members. Oh, and that's what we're in town.
I don't know, it was very airy, like a airy kind of thread. It was like a.
Thank you for coming out to the, I guess ribbon cutting or RFP announcement, or, I missed it unfortunately, but we had some committee members there for it. But I'm happy to have the, ADT, installed in the.
Yeah, it was a good event.
Yeah.
And I was saying to Chris and Nika, just there's been a lot of good news from DOT lately, so it's
Yeah.
nice to go.
Yeah.
See everyone. There's a lot of new energy.
Oh, I think everyone's very excited about the administration and the energy.
Yeah.
Good.
Really? Really? You thought that inauguration was exciting? You thought it had some energy?
I'm gonna miss a little little quirks and clips, you know, but.
I feel like we're gonna still get them. I feel like we'll still get them.
I think
You know,
I love the idea of coherence from really any level of government.
yeah, right, and so this is our, Uniform Service and Transportation Committee, so we have transportation, of course, but also we, oversee anything around. Like, sanitation, NYPD, all the FOA
It
applications.
was like.
You'll notice you have, we'll be talking about,
they have, like-
low traffic
so,
neighborhood pilot
they have,
program,
like-
we're
it's like a
we're
sound
gonna
too,
discuss
so,
tonight, if you wanna
Like when we left.
have a resolution in support of that, we had a presentation last month about, LTN, so it was really cool, yeah, so we'll see, yeah.
Oh.
So.
Oh, was,
Hey.
hi.
Hey, how's it going? See ya, thanks so much for coming. Like, it's,
Sorry,
the vibe is great, like the people.
We're still waiting on some of our agencies to join, so, but we might have to get started.
It's like, I don't even,
We'll give it another like 2 minutes and we'll get started.
I just like quality stuff. Just like quality.
Yeah, further.
Yeah, they mostly have like, it's like a show bar, so they have like 3 levels, 2. So we have like a upstairs, yeah, it's a good space. Yes, it's near Oakwood, and like this. In that area. Yeah, Oakwood, so it's off of Third Avenue. Yeah. We should sort of space or something, and do this. They have like a lot of like concerts and stuff, yeah.
Very cool. Yes.
Ready to do some minute taking over here? Ready to do some minutes? What's it? Or whatever.
What?
Come on.
Oh, no, this was a while ago. Yeah, it was a while ago, but that like, every time somebody said like, oh,
Park, yeah, it's like, like they NYPD literally
Okay.
discourages people from filing reports. That's true.
about,
I certainly don't feel like filing reports on.
yeah, that's why I
That's
just
a lot.
think that'd be.
Okay, so yeah, so I guess if one of us shows up, it'll be 6 or no?
Yeah, otherwise it would be reported, and I hate that like.
It's 6.
That's
Sure,
an
sure,
injury,
sure.
something
Yeah.
it's such a broad
Yeah.
category.
Right, exactly.
Alright.
A sprained ankle to quadriplegic now.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Those are just very,
we-
or
Right.
TBI or something, like.
Ready?
But
Yeah.
even just in general, when they're like, yeah, traffic
Oh, sorry,
collisions are
sorry.
down. If
Yeah, no
you
problem.
make it more cumbersome to report things, of course, it's gonna seem that.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of
That's
manipulation that there
Oh, yeah.
occurs to push forward the narrative.
Alright, guys, it is 6:35, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. We are recording. And I know we don't have our agencies that have joined us yet. So we're just gonna move along.
But then
We
I
did get that.
forgot that Frederick Douglass isn't in our board. And I realized I was going, so the data isn't on my community board, so it's
Solid.
Cisco,
Unfortunately.
and there's a
Solomon-
bunch of overlap,
Yeah.
and I realized a mistake.
We have a motion to call this meeting to order.
Motion to call me George.
Seconded.
Awesome, thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Should put it out the agenda.
Seconded.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
With one, item, I guess it's old business, that resolution regarding exit, 12, off of Henry Hudson North.
Okay, yeah, we can. talk
Is
about
that old business?
Yeah. that's-
Well, technically, it was never heard here before.
Oh, okay.
It was a resolution that came out of exec board,
Okay, we'll add that to,
new business,
so new business,
new
yeah.
business, yeah.
So do I have a motion to adopt the agenda with this amendment?
So moved.
Awesome,
Second.
awesome, thank you very much.
Just for clarification,
Mhm.
what's the additional item?
So we're adding to new business, the discussion around Rezo about exit 12.
Okay,
And I don't believe anyone had a chance to look at the minutes unfortunately, that Juan submitted. So we can move that towards the end of the agenda, but we'll circle back on that. Next up, we have agency presentations. We don't have anyone from our agencies here yet. So we'll just have to move past that. We normally do. But we had to move this meeting. Normally we meet on the first Thursday, but now we're meeting today because of the holidays. So, but we do have an agency representative here from DOT. So we'll go ahead and speak with you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. But please introduce yourself and.
Yeah, hi everyone, thanks for having me. I'm Danielle Zuckerman, Manhattan Borough Commissioner. I started over the summer and I've been making my way to the community boards. I think I've already interacted with a bunch of you. I was out here this weekend to celebrate the final approval steps for the automated public toilet that's going in at 12th Avenue near St. Clair Place. I know I deal day to day on a lot of issues in Community Board 9, but happy to discuss anything. I know you guys work closely with Lyle, and I often hear from him what's going on, but you should feel free to use me as a resource and reach out if you ever need anything, if you have ideas. I know, for example, Felipe always has a lot of good ideas for projects in the district, and we are appreciative of your support. I was talking to Lyle tonight before I came. He was like, "Oh, they're great. They love everything we do." And so it's good to hear. And I guess a little bit about me. I've been at DOT for about 6 years. I was working on the intergovernmental affairs team on a variety of issues, and before that I worked for a state senator downtown. So that's kind of my background, and still very new to the board of commissioner kind of portfolio, but I do know DOT pretty well.
Fantastic, awesome. Before we open it to questions, I'm April Adams, co-chair of our UST committee. My other co-chair, Solomon Prophet, unfortunately has a back injury, so he couldn't make it tonight. But just really want to reiterate, really appreciate you taking the time to come out tonight. With Lyle's great, he's so responsive. He's really helpful, so I'm so happy that he's our representative. Also want to mention that too. But I know you're only 12 days into the job, but you of course have an understanding of the needs of Community Board 9. There's definitely some top issues that rise to mind. Of course, top being pedestrian and bike safety. That's something that is a recurring theme here at our community board, but also other things like vehicles that park the large trucks that use Community Board 9 as a kind of parking lot. We have those issues, daylighting issues. We have so just thinking through those. Is there anything with that the administration is looking to do to tackle any of those issues? I know you're only 12 days in, so.
No,
but
well,
just
so
have-
actually, you're giving me too much credit. I
Yeah.
started over this summer.
Oh, okay, there you go, okay.
But yeah, certainly we're still, working to get the new commissioner up to speed. We're very fortunate that he used to work at DOT, so he already knows a lot about what we do. But for example, on, like the overnight truck parking issue, that's an issue citywide. And we've worked to do enforcement blitzes, but I think, there's an underlying issue with that, which is that, truck operators need a place to rest, and we don't have a lot of infrastructure. So I think there's also efforts to identify locations for that to occur. But if there are particular locations, we've had for big PD to address those and see if there's any way to kind of mitigate that impact in the particular neighborhood.
Absolutely.
On that from an enforcement standpoint, and I think this is probably a little bit larger. Hi, sorry, I'm Gretchen. I think one of the challenges is that it feels like enforcement on those types of things are community driven. So for example, I live right across from St. John the Divine. There's a 53-foot tractor trailer that parks there overnight really regularly. The police love to hang out in front of Hungarian pastry shop, and unless I put in a 311 request, they're not going to do anything about the 53-foot tractor trailer that's right there. So it's like, unless you call it in, there doesn't seem to be much of an interest in enforcement of something that's like, unless they got a directive that this is what we're doing a blitz on today, there's not an interest in doing it. And so like changing that mindset, I think would be really helpful.
And hi, I'm Jordan. I completely agree with everything Gretchen said. I also, I live at 113th in Morningside, so kind of close by. I pass the Hungarian pastry shop and I know exactly what trailer you're talking about. But I know that you bring up the point of there's nowhere for truck drivers to rest. Well, people who have like their own vehicles also are just SOL if they park somewhere. Like I don't really like this double standard where big corporations that have large trucks get all this grace that regular residents don't. And frankly, I am one of the 83% of CB9 residents that don't even own a car. Or sorry, 79%, sorry, 83% is different stat. I am one of the 79% of community board residents who don't even own a car. And we talked with the, I think it was the 26th precinct about getting kind of enforcement of these trailers, and they said it was just really hard to get them towed. Are there boots big enough for these trailers? Because I figure if you put a boot on these trucks and said, okay, now you have to wait 48 hours to get the boot off, they would stop.
Yeah, no, that, I mean, that is one of the challenges of enforcement. You do need very particular equipment. It's a particular team. Our freight mobility team had been working directly with PD on locations of concern, and that's why I think I understand the concern about PD kind of, I don't know that the typical traffic enforcement agent can just go and enforce in the same way. They certainly can't tow, but
But could we enable them? Could we give them that equipment?
yeah, I think that
Not
might
to
be.
get off, but it sounds like what you're suggesting is, can we then come forward and say, we have areas of concern? And
I
can they be highlighted as special projects or something?
I think what we can do is share with our freight mobility team and they can connect with the team that they had been working on where we've been doing targeted enforcement. And I think they can elevate to the team that more directly handles this rather than the precinct and see if they have a different window into getting some targeted enforcement.
It would also be interesting to see like, right, cause it's technically they're breaking 3 rules, right? Like whatever the posted rules are, no commercial overnight, and then if they're oversized, but like. If the summons that they're getting, and I'll admit, I've peeked a few times, if the summons that they're getting is for $65. It doesn't mean anything,
Yeah.
right?
That's
So-
just a tiny fee.
And also like, I mean, like, the fact that you're here, like, DOT can also provide infrastructure to break up the curb space.
Mhm.
So that the space that is immediately adjacent to the curb can only really be used by passenger cars. So if you have if you have one of those curbside containers that only allows, I don't know, 40 feet to the next one. I mean, each
Right.
curbside container, a truck can't park there, it can only be like 4 cars that can park there, or
Right.
3 cars that can park there, that's a more useful, that's like, you don't have to enforce it, it's self-enforcing.
Right,
And we have additional language about that in the resolution you wrote.
So things like that.
So, I don't, on kind of different area, the viaduct at 155th Street,
Uh-huh.
which is a sore point for the residents of that area. Do you have a sense of the status or what's gonna happen in the next 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, so that has been a challenging one because of, essentially, my understanding is that the contractor kind of had some concerns and claims and walked off the job. I think typically there's usually a mechanism by which they can pursue those claims, but they don't stop working. They kind of do that. There's a certain point and way at which they do that. So this has been a little bit of a unique situation, and I think we have been working to try to get them back to the table and resume work because, certainly the process to end that contract and pursue and procure another, that's very arduous, and I think we spent a long time trying to work through things with them. But it seems like they've stopped working, so now we're, working with our bridges division, our contracts division, the law department to get on a path forward. I think right now, I know that there are concerns in particular about the staging and the way that it's been there for a very long time and we don't have an end date. So I've been, inquiring internally about what capacity we have to make changes to that, but I don't know kind of what constraints the contract poses to like what we can move around over there right now because the contract is technically still active. But that's something I've been working on internally, and I think it's just, there's activity happening in court now, and once it gets there, I think it's sort of out of our hands a little bit, but I'm working to see what ability we have to make that better in the short term, but it looks like that's going to remain an issue for the foreseeable future.
And then on Summer Streets, which I think was a resounding success, especially with the expansion up to Dykeman and all the way down Brooklyn Bridge. I would like to believe it's gonna happen again this year. Can you hint?
I believe that's what we're planning, but I don't know if we're making any changes to the route or anything else. It's a pretty intensive coordination effort, as you can imagine, with emergency services and, closing off those streets requires just a lot of physical barriers and staff. So I would wanna say it before we verify that we have all those pieces, but we agree it was really successful and we're glad. Folks were so excited about it. I did a full Manhattan walk on that day.
Yeah, I did too. I did.
Walk right by here.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Is there a way to participate in the planning process?
Yeah, I'd love to sit in on those meetings too.
Yeah, I think that it's a good question. We typically, work to identify programming partners
Right.
and we usually do some publicizing a little bit early on. to see who's interested in providing programming. I think, once we have more information about the plans and the route, we can share that with you guys.
Thank you.
And if you have any suggestions for particular programming or partners who might be interested or anything at all, we can share that with the team so they can factor it into their planning for next year.
Fabulous, great. My last question, just comment would be, we get a lot of board complaints about, St. Nicholas and, 145th Street about, once again, it's an enforcement issue and it's an agency thing, but NYPD, the traffic unit there that's at, the 145th Street subway station, the transit unit, they park their cars along there, and then when Harlem School for the Arts, when school lets out, it comes in, it's like kind of a melee, a lot of buses, of course, are on that corridor. So it's definitely something that we'd love to tackle, and with this new administration, it's been a headache for a lot of people that live over there. So like I said, we get a lot of board complaints about it, but.
And do you know if Lyle has worked with our school safety team on that one? It sounds familiar. But we can definitely have them, you mentioned there's a school right there, right?
There's school, yeah, and NYPD, and then, yeah.
And typically our school safety team, they take a really targeted approach with schools. They look at particular treatments that relate to, like, you know, preventing kids from like running into the street after school ends, or, you know, they just take a different sort of approach to those locations. So I think we're having that team take a look.
I'm not sure if it has, but that's a great point. In a perfect world, NYPD wouldn't double and triple park there, but yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just a quick one. So I think there was an announcement in the newspaper, New York City will install more cameras.
Yes.
So do you have a sense of how many might be coming to this district or how the district would be impacted?
I don't have a sense, but what we've been doing with the red light cameras, no, we were only allowed to operate until recently at 150 intersections citywide. And now I believe we can do 600 intersections. And because we haven't been able to expand this program in so long, we're really taking a targeted approach on like where the data shows that crashes are being caused by red light running. So we're prioritizing those locations, plus trying to distribute them equitably. So I actually don't even have the list of where they're going, but what we're doing is really targeting the ones where red light running specifically has been a problem. And if you guys have suggested locations, we can add them to our list. And I think once we have more flexibility in our capacity, we can start, you know, doing it, like we can start looking at your suggestions like we do with speed cameras. But I think right now, because this is so new, we're working on like the real problem areas for red light running.
So this should be 425 divided across the city.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions from the committee?
I thought the announcement last year.
Oh,
was
sorry,
nice.
from the committee first, sorry. Any other questions from the committee? Right.
Sorry about that. I thought the announcement was for 650 new red light cameras across the city. Also, like, how are the data on like which intersections are the worst offenders? That can be pretty hard because I imagine you're gonna be pulling from the police reports on accidents. And I'm not 100% sure that those are gonna be your most reliable measure, particularly if you have car versus like vulnerable road user. And I wonder if it would be prudent to install like several thousand cameras. And then once you get a sense from those cameras, which are the best intersections where you'll get the biggest bang for your buck, only use those to be the red light ticketing cameras.
Right, so we just have the authorization to do the 600. And that's governed by the state legislature.
I think she begged the question of how could you get authorization to do more?
Also, like, you know, you have authorization to give red light cameras
You mean
know,
ticketing,
a certain, yes, but that's for ticketing purposes. The
ticketing
state,
like monitoring.
the monitoring, right? So, because right now, your data on which intersections would give you the biggest bang for your buck is unclear. And the only way you're gonna get that data is by establishing an observation, right? And I would suggest not waiting and trying to like back end it, being proactive, and putting it at more than you think you need, because then you decide to charge the best ones. It will make the biggest savings.
Yeah, there's also a contract capacity question of ramping up in installations. So I think we're installing as many as we can, as quickly as we can. And, you know, we'll continue to work to expand our authorization for all of our automated enforcement programs, but we're expanding to a capacity we never had before, and certainly having it in more places will reinforce the rules in a way that it wasn't when we were limited to 150 intersections.
So we can, but you are comfortable with, if we submit to you a list of suggestions in terms of intersections?
So
Or
what we'll
this
do
is
is we'll see if they're on our list for the most urgent locations that we're installing right away, and then if they're not, then we will study those once we have a little bit more capacity.
Brilliant.
Cause we have. It's,
13.
it does, so it does use the police report data.
Yeah, it's just, it's flawed, it's like an observational network that's kind of flawed and it's.
Oh,
Of course, skewed heavily towards red light violations that are car by car, and I would guess that there's.
Well, it
it's-
does actually, you can look at it based on number of, like it is, it does track. Pedestrians, cyclists and motorists,
Yes,
killed
I
or
know.
injured. So. Basically, I just,
But having.
the resources required for the array you're suggesting are.
I appreciate us going into data, but, I just wanna, we need to move on.
Like shot
Yeah.
spotter, where it's been put by a third party proprietary vendor and then.
So my last question is, I'm sorry, we have to, my last question being, are there gonna be any changes to the, open dining? Any changes?
I think any legislative change, we look forward to resuming the season of the newly permanent program in April. Certainly if legislation changes, we'll adjust the program accordingly. I know that there were some bills kicking around, but as of now, we plan to start up again. And you know, now that we've been through the program, the permanent program for a year according to, you know, these particular rules, we're hoping it can go a little smoother, particularly for you guys who have been reviewing so many applications and hoping that everyone's kind of getting into the rhythm of everything, but yeah, we're still looking forward to coming back out this year.
So, okay, one super last thing regarding the automatic public toilets, and this is just a point of clarification,
Yeah.
if I understood it correctly. The mayor, speaker and DOT are calling for a design that doesn't exist right now. For a type of modular toilet that would not require connection into utility services, is that correct?
Correct, so what's being done is there will be an RFP to find that model. And as you mentioned, it would be something easier to install that wouldn't have the same sort of feasibility limitations that our current model has. The one that's going here will be part of the current franchise and that should be going in this year. But I think our goal is to be able to deliver these much more quickly. So yeah, we're in search of a version that is like less labor intensive to install, and less utility intensive.
Great.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for attending. We are very excited for you to join us again. soon.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Before you go,
Yeah.
can I ask, is there a possibility of increasing the place at St. Clair's Place from 1 to 2?
Increasing, I'm sorry, what time?
Increasing it from 1 to 2 facilities.
Units.
Yeah, so at this time, no, this model is kind of one per location, but I think as we were discussing, I think we're looking for a version that might have more capacity for more units, but right now this is just a single unit, that's the model we have.
Can I you briefly mention that they're going to replace the unit that's currently installed at United Palace on 178th Street? Is that because it's a different design or is
So
it just?
we just updated the one, so I think the one that's going in at 12 is a little bit newer, there are a couple of updates, it's still the same underlying device, but I think they've just made a couple of tweaks in terms of like drainage and some of the elements of it.
Okay, cool.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
We need to move on to the rest of our agenda, but really appreciate your time. Thanks for watching, yeah. Awesome. So we don't have any other, unless Kenneth, Luna? Not sure if you're with an agency. Maybe you can't hear me. Okay, we'll move on. So we don't have any other agencies here to present, so we'll move to our action items. The first being new liquor license applications and temporary retail permits. The one and only being Hilda's Hospitality, aka La Artista, located on 142 Hamilton Place, near Hamilton Place and West 143rd. Looks like they're applying for a new liquor license, although I know for a fact it must be a tier.
Yeah, change of
temporary-
business.
Yeah, I think it's.
Or change of business name.
Yeah, but no objections here, love that place.
Yeah.
Motion for unanimous consent?
I second that, yeah, second, third. Moving on to our renewals here for liquor license application, the first up is Toast Uptown on Broadway between Tianan and LaSalle. Just that fact that all of these, we contacted NYPD, we didn't have any issues with any of these locations.
Can we make a motion to do them all en masse? Does anyone have any objections?
Well, just for the sake of the folks online, I'll say the other remaining applicants, so we have Toast Uptown. Arts and Crafts Beer Parlor on Amsterdam and 113th.
116.
116.
I love art and craft,
Oh, yeah.
it's such a chill vibe.
Tom's Restaurant, we have Mama Sushi on Broadway between West 146 and West 147. And we also have Fumo at 1600 Amsterdam on West 139th Street. So we have a motion for unanimous consent, is that what I'm saying?
Yeah, so just, I know that at some of the neighborhood sector meetings, Mama Sushi comes up as an issue. So it kind of would behoove, I think it would be beneficial to have the owners come, but in this particular case,
Well, we could table that particular one until the next meeting.
Motion to do all but Mama Sushi via unanimous consent.
And then table Mama Sushi till next month and invite them to come.
Yeah,
I second that, third that. Yeah.
Mama Sushi on Diamond.
No,
Lots of
the
issues there.
142.
I think I don't. think
The
it's-
owners, yeah. And then we have a class change application for Cafe Masala, I've never been there. On Broadway and West 125th Street, let me look at the application. Real quick, give me a second.
Yeah.
and Tom's Restaurant is the Seinfeld restaurant?
It's on
Yeah.
Wall Street, there's a typo there.
Yeah,
I walk by there all the time, it seems to be an issue.
That used to be my office building.
Or
Oh, the NASA build, yeah.
to change the class
Or yeah,
to a full on premise license.
The actual Excel.
working for one.
The city culture vote was good to
So it looks like. It looks like Masala is applying a class change, they're applying for, like they're changing their class so that they can be allowed to have liquor for a full.
So from beer and wine to full spirit,
Yeah,
But they already served beer and wine?
beer and wine,
Yeah.
beer, wine and cider.
Have there been complaints?
no. Do I have a motion to, accept this application, approve this application?
Seconded.
Yes.
Alright, next up. That was quick, so next up we have old business, the only old business I have is I realized that the resolution we passed in November, was it November or December regarding the composting? That never went to exec, so it never went to general board.
Yeah, can I make a point about
Yeah.
that? Things going to exec board. I took a look at at our bylaws. And there's nothing explicit that from what I read about resolutions having to go to exec board.
Oh.
So, I'm okay with like, like the idea of that, of like having extra eyes on a reso, but.
But I'll do.
I
don't think they should use veto power, yeah.
All they do is veto.
Yeah, so are we following the bylaws, or is there some bylaw that's not written in the bylaws that I'm not reading somewhere? So
Well, it can't be, right,
Oh.
yeah,
Okay,
so it has to be black letter, but. We're looking at the bylaws right now, and I do
Okay.
think there is a provision, I don't think it's possible to just come out, strategic planning is. I don't think it's possible to come out of committee and bypass, because theoretically, you really need the signature of the chair. And that process would have to come through exec, but we can come back and take a look, are you looking to bypass?
no, I just wanna follow the bylaws.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I wanna do.
Well, and I feel like it's there's the logistical part of it, right, where
Yeah.
it's like, there's a like basically another layer of veto before it gets to the general board. And then there's the practical part of it that if for some reason it gets tabled in strategic planning, now we have a resolution that's 6 months old since we passed it and the general has it and it never makes it to general, right? So like just the idea that it has to go through another hoop
Yeah,
extends the period and a lot of things lose momentum.
Although I will say that an exec board does give the public the opportunity to see those resolutions.
Yeah, I'm not against.
No, I'm just saying, like, it gives them another opportunity to like comment on it, and it's something that they're against before. But,
Yeah, and we've also seen resolutions show up to the general board that have not gone through committee and then
Yeah.
sort of out of thin air, like appear and then.
Which one would this be?
This one would be the one that we're gonna discuss.
the
later.
exit one.
yeah,
So-
Well, or the one that the guy read
Oh,
about
yeah, the vote on how.
like how we're voting. I was like,
No.
what are we doing here?
No, that did go, it went from housing into executive and into general board. But
It
there was,
wasn't even on the agenda. He just like proposed it at the general,
yeah,
a member of the public.
is there something in the
What?
bylaws about that? About putting
which one?
those on the floor?
About saying that the community board was taking a position on how we should vote on the propositions on the ballot.
Yeah, that was in November, or October.
Yeah, right before
Oh,
the
yeah.
election.
Yeah, right before the election. I mean, I'm,
Oh, yeah, I don't
My
recall that.
point being was
Yeah.
that the compost, like, that resolution is clearly not gonna be at, general board this Thursday, so
Right.
it's fine, that
It's
it'll go
fine.
to February, but just an FYI.
yeah.
But-
But I also wanna like highlight, like, this is a logistical issue.
Yeah.
That if we need a sign off, as opposed to like just laying eyes on it versus just. Straight to,
So it has to be voted on by the executive to advance.
yeah, but again, that's not what
The
the,
bylaws don't
that's
do
not what,
that.
that's not how I read
Yeah,
it.
that's how I just read through that, and there was, so there is an issue with the bylaws wrapped around interpretation.
Right.
And it needs to be refined to provide greater clarity and specificity, yeah. So, yeah, that will be addressed. And we're looking at the bylaws of other boards to see how they've handled the same things. So it's a good time to raise the issue.
Right now, I mean, for example, this month, exec met before we did, so
Yeah.
even if we passed something that exec would have
It
loved,
gets thrown off.
nothing we do this month will even come up until next month's exec.
I don't know what's gonna happen with these residents that, like, these applications that we just approved, because they didn't go through that,
So, yeah,
but that's another.
Yeah.
Yeah, like,
there's a whole, something to be thought about. What is the impact when things get thrown out of schedule?
Yeah.
Because it impacts the business. It's not really a casual issue. It's like when the board didn't meet last year,
Last January, yeah.
last January, it's like, it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Do we have any other old business? Alright, new business, so we have two things in new business, the low traffic neighborhood pilot program, Rezo, and then the Rezo on exit 12, is that correct?
could we do the resume on exit 12 first? I think it might be quicker,
Right,
or I'm fully misreading that.
I don't know, because the reso on exit 12 is also gonna go to parks. From what I'm,
Yeah.
parks doesn't really exist right now,
Oh, I thought the discussion tonight would be quicker.
they don't have any chairs, and they didn't meet this morning.
That was the.
if you don't mind, we do the. low
Yeah,
traffic
let's do it.
I-
I care that much.
Wait, let me just.
so do you wanna, since Daniel is here, do you wanna sort of like overview it?
Yeah,
Because you'd be-
Yeah, and then I need to. I need to join the. Zoom,
Okay. We can,
give me a second. So it was.
So what she's saying, do you wanna talk about at a high level?
Yeah, so I just don't wanna have, okay, here we go.
okay, then I think that.
Okay, there we go, yeah, talking at high level.
What is it?
So low traffic neighborhoods, this is a technique essentially. To redesign the directionality of the streets. so as to avoid cut through traffic. The idea being that a lot of the traffic that uses our local streets is traffic that is neither starting their trip nor ending their trip, nor interacting in, with the community, with the district, with the, the area that we're occupying here. And so if they're just passing through, the idea is if you change the directionality of some streets, you reduce how attractive it may be for certain drivers to take certain local streets, and you incentivize them to stay on main arterial to get through the district. That's the concept at a high level, and it can be implemented hodgepodge, or it can be implemented comprehensively. And from what I've seen in the neighborhood is like, there's already some minor examples of it. There are streets that that go east-west, the numbered streets that will go one way, and then once they cross an avenue, they're one way in the other direction. So as to prevent just, using that street as a pass through.
The Broadway corridor is a pretty good example of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
But I think one of the other benefits to this, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
cut
okay.
you off, Felipe, is that. Again, going back to trucks, there's a big challenge in this district with trucks using non-authorized truck routes. And especially now that there's basically no enforcement, and the wayfinding apps will encourage them
Right.
to cut through a neighborhood to potentially save 3 seconds, only to then get cut behind a trash truck and then lay on their horn for 20 minutes. That's another, like, so again, like trying to have things that we can do that take the active enforcement things out of it.
Right, passive enforcement, but it's for sure.
So the benefit is to the pedestrian.
Yes, correct.
So that's it opens up the street to become a pedestrian walkway or an esplanade.
but the benefit is also to drivers who live, work, and visit here, because given, so in Community Board 9, only 17% of traffic isn't cut through. So that 17% of drivers with these redesigns would face less congestion, and they would actually have shortened drive times. The pedestrians would have massively improved safety, cyclists would have massively improved safety. So obviously the biggest, most sparkly win is for the 94% of us who don't commute via car.
Right.
And the 79% of us who don't even own a car. But for the people who do own a car, for the people who do commute to work every day using that car, it will reduce their drive times too, and I don't think we should gloss over that, mainly because everyone on exec seems to commute via car and care about parking spaces more than anything else in this community.
So the low area neighborhood, low area
traffic
traffic
neighborhood.
neighborhood. There was a group that came in, open plans to present and talk about it. Out of curiosity, is there anything on the DOT landscape that corresponds with something like this?
So I think we're looking a lot at just this kind of sort of idea.
I think what would be, I don't wanna kind of write your resolution, I think what might be helpful is suggested locations.
Yeah.
That people think would be.
Yeah.
Suitable, and I think having the support of the board, if you tell us, study one-way conversions on this, and this block. I think directing DOT more explicitly
So we have that at the end of the resolution.
on them.
And this is a corridor that, we picked because I'm of the opinion, I don't think this is a fact, but that there's been divestment from this corridor. There used to be a public bus, the M18, which ran up until 2010, and it was cut due to funding issues, and it was never put back. And that's fine. Like if we lose the bus, I mean, it's not fine, but like if we can't get the bus back, can we at least get some improvements on Convent. So that was my rationale, and again, it's not factual, like, the only factual thing is that there's no bus anymore, there used to be a bus. And so having a bus sort of like incentivizes people to take the bus and, you know, like, be able to commute, on the bus, but this is like the next best thing, this is, allows for easier walking.
And it's 113 to where?
It's 113th to 152nd. It's a Convent Avenue and Morningside Avenue, so.
So part of convent that is, the start and the end point to City College is already restricted during certain hours. So in an odd way, this could play brilliantly. I live on Convent, believe it doesn't, you are now a resident of Convent. And, you know, at night, there's virtually no traffic, phenomenal avenue or, avenue to go up and down, walk, bike, whatever. So I think it lends itself very well to something like this in pilot form. So,
There's also a restriction on most of Convent for, there's not supposed to be any commercial traffic.
all of Convent,
All of Convent,
all
okay,
of Convent,
stand corrected.
yeah.
It's passenger car only,
Yeah.
so we already have restrictions on Convent, we already have some cross streets on Convent that, have opposing directions. So it's, you know, we already have the City College, and the geometry of Convent. You know, it gets narrow and gets wider at certain points, so like, I think that's another reason why it would be a good place to start.
One side effect of all of the existing restrictions and features that Felipe mentioned is that I know it's not perfect data, but it's what we have. I looked at the crash data from the past 5 years because I couldn't download anymore because the file size was too big. And Convent was possibly one of the safest streets. It was the safest, like Northwest Street in the community board. And like just be a number of crashes with injuries, there were very few over the comparatively, obviously there were multiple, which is too many, but like, I think this idea of kind of taking something that already has a lot of good ideas and really revamping it to be great, and then using that as the example for future roads or future streets in our community board.
Do we have a motion to,
Yeah.
Adopt
This was an odd and interesting day for you to be here, but I said.
do we have a motion to adopt this resolution?
Yes,
Yeah.
I move to adopt this.
Yeah.
resolution.
Second, all right, passes, so it'll go to exec in February.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
But anticipating, kind of like a broad conversation, anticipating some pushback, I think
Yeah.
the other strategy would be to gather signatures.
Okay,
So, and then have some additional conversations with DOT and, with DOT in terms of how to shape this up.
Yeah.
So at least a study would be possible.
And it would be useful to know, I think, from the broader board, if there are operational concerns from different institutions. We
Right.
could also like start with review a smaller segment. But yeah, we'd be interested well, we're happy to review this, but just getting a more refined sense of, aside from some of the institutions you mentioned, like I'm trying to think if there are like hospitals or any other like.
No.
So, no, so there's.
two former hospitals.
Yeah, the player would be City College, they operate the shuttle. And I sponsored the speed bump, which was a big issue. Because the shuttle goes up and down Convent, so it had to go over the speed bump.
okay, so perfect.
But one speed bump was so effective that they pushed for 2 more speed bumps. So I think they would be the interested party, but my sense is they would love to see the traffic decrease, except for their vehicles.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah. And the fire department periodically, but the throughway for the fire department is Amsterdam.
Yeah. All right,
But yeah, we'd love to get something to you.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, what's the next?
Okay,
Can I ask a question about the speed bumps?
Mhm.
Like, cause I hear this often, it's like, oh, we have buses there, we can't do speed bumps. Why the old paving stones that we used to have and that you see in some cities that they use, why don't we have like those, like they have on the West Side Greenway? To make sure that you don't speed through the pedestrian sections, that they have like, you know.
Rumble strip?
Yeah, strips of.
Rumble strip,
Why?
madam?
Oh, like why did they change from speed bumps
But
to
why-
speed hump?
Why can't we have rumble strips for the cars in New York City? Why is rumble strips only for the bike lanes?
It might have to do with just the maintenance and the wear and tear that it can withstand, like on, like bikes, I think. Don't have as much of a weight, I think, you know, with resurfacing and everything, I think the challenge with all kinds of speed reducing infrastructure is. When you do resurfacing, you also have to reinstall them, and so that means it, you know, prevents you from installing other ones, so I think it's just. A different, it adds a lot of resources, I haven't quite gotten to free about rumble strips, I could ask if that's.
This is my favorite kind. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, so actually,
Yes,
this,
Yeah.
Very similar.
Yes, sorry,
This is my favorite type of infrastructure here. It's,
with the neck down.
yeah, with the neck down, and then if you go, there's another one mid-block.
Yeah.
That's lovely.
There's like a
And these-
preschool here, right?
Well, this was because there was a very tragic death
Yeah.
on this street and the community lost their minds
Yeah, I mean, look at this one. This one is even longer.
validly.
But I would love to have these things done before
Right.
Well,
a
yes,
child
exactly.
dies.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
That's like, there's only one of them in the city that were in the area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I've
that was
never
in
seen
response
these
to the tragedy.
been replaced. I think
These
these
are
have
very
long.
hard to maintain.
Yeah, but are they? Cause they might not have been ever replaced, so. I
Yeah, I
don't
think once you need, like, I think
Once
with
you
with
need it
general
for-
stones and pavers and stuff, we have limited crew capacity, so I know just places in the city where we do have those, I think once they do fail, it. You know, it gets really annoying and we don't have the ability to like get to all of them. It's just not part of our normal repertoire, so it takes a little bit of extra staff resources.
It is
And
fascinating that the
staff-
bollards are mandatory to keep people from parking on the sidewalk though, on the other side of the street.
I mean, these are paving stones, but you know, there's other kinds of rumble strips, like before your car goes through the easy pass and it's got the zzz.
Right, like the kind that they have on the side of the highway that if you start to go off.
Yes,
lane, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, my thing I was gonna ask about on the. Related to speed bumps is, I believe like 2, maybe 3 years ago, Mayor Adams said that there was a commitment to installing a certain number of elevated crosswalks.
Mhm.
And I don't think that ever happens.
Yeah, I think we ran into some contract issues with the raised crosswalks. They're kind of like speed bumps in that it requires a lot of like underground utility coordination and they're not super easy to do. And I think we've done a couple of them in-house. If there were like locations that you were thinking of in particular, but I think you're right that I don't know that we were able to do as many as we wanted of those.
I just think it serves multiple purposes in a way that like. If we can get a speed bump and we can get an elevated crosswalk, let's do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Alright, do you wanna put up the next?
Yeah. Yeah.
Alright, so we're talking about the resolution on exit 12, and so,
Yes.
give us a little background on
Yes.
this, so.
Okay, so exit 12 off the Henry Hudson Parkway North is an exit that I presume was built after the railroad tracks on the west side were there. So it was built probably in the Robert Moses era, 1930s, 1940s. And it's built over the train tracks, and recently, I guess in July, New York City DOT, which, correct me if I'm wrong, does not own the exit, but it has the easement, so the land is owned by the railroad and then New York City Parks. And so it's a long exit, goes over the railroad, and I think that there's just, from what I understand, there's structural deficiency that, the danger would be that it would collapse onto the railroad tracks. And because of that, there are now restrictions on what can go on top of it, so there's no more traffic that come from the Henry Hudson. Since July of 2025, July 2nd. Please correct me if I said anything inaccurate.
Yes, we identified that there were some urgent repairs needed, and so we've been working with Amtrak to design those, and we had to close the roadway to
Right.
ensure safety.
Sure, yeah, great, so thank you, like, we appreciate, like, safety first, and, I think one thing that's resulted from this new restriction is that people have found that you could, get into the park this way. You can get into Riverside Park from 125th Street, it's a straight shot, it is a level, ground, more or less. There's no steps involved, there's no steep grade involved. And it allows for walking onto a section of the park that was previously inaccessible. Essentially, you had to cross the roadway to get to it's like a quarter of an acre of parkland. And I think that, so last month, there was a resolution calling for the return to car traffic for the roadway. And I think that we just wanna get an idea of how can we write a resolution that sort of takes everybody's background into consideration, everybody that is using the roadway, everybody that's used it in the past and everybody that's using it now, and trying to see if there's an equitable solution for all parties. One that prioritizes safety, because we don't want anybody collapsing into the train tracks. And one that, sort of allows people that gain this newfound way to get into the park to still have something like that.
So I think one of the questions that came out of executive committee, and it goes right to DOT. Is there a sense of a plan, and is there a sense of a timeline for the rehabilitation or whatever's going to take place?
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten a plan of design or anything. I think we've been working with Amtrak to put that together.
So, but is the intention is to reopen the exit at some point?
I think so. I mean, I think the first order of business is to just make sure it's safe and get their load and was kind of at the standard it was at before. And making sure it's secure, but I think the intent of the design is probably to have it restored to what it was before. However, if there's like a big call for people who want something else, I think you need to look at that.
Right.
And I think we have to coordinate with parks and Amtrak, and I don't know if the design might have to be tweaked to account for different. I think, going from cars to no cars is different, or is easier from an engineering perspective than going from no cars to cars.
Right.
But I think that it would probably require a traffic analysis and just a sort of feasibility check for that to be the condition in the long term.
Question?
Yeah, and I guess I would just say, backing up a little bit, that it was an extremely long exit ramp, right? Like
Yeah,
3/4 of a mile.
yeah, somewhere between 3/4 of a mile and half a mile.
And 2 lanes,
Yeah.
which is very wide. And so people oftentimes would actually get up to very high speeds exiting there. And if you look at the crash data, there's a very large amount of crash data because people would just come straight through that intersection. And the number of times I've seen that traffic light down, like literally just down because a car crashed into it. So as it's being rebuilt, like you said, turning it to its previous status, maybe, does it make sense to go down to 1 lane? Does it make sense to have rumble strips as warnings that people need to slow down? Like, does it make sense? Like, as opposed to, like, if it's coming back, can we bring it back better?
Yeah.
Narrow lanes, because there's a very nice little FHWA formula about lane width and how fast cars go, and that lane width is for people to be going 55 as they come through the stoplight. That's kind of crazy.
So this resolution, this was not.
Okay, now it's my turn.
Oh, you gotta raise your hand,
Oh, I
okay?
didn't see you. Raise your hand, Ted. Sorry, your video's off, but go ahead.
Okay. Now, we have a situation where you are saying you want to do away with the 125th Street exit. The question that I have is, where then is the next exit?
158.
But I don't think nobody.
Oh,
suggested
that's
that,
a
Ted.
big question.
Ted, nobody made that suggestion.
So Ted, right now what we're discussing is the fact that exit 12 is closed. Before they reopen it, we wanna see if they can make it better in the sense of allowing pedestrian traffic to access the park as well as reopen exit 12. Not just reopen it the same as it always was, because clearly there's a need, because folks are using it to access the park.
Well, there's a very simple way of dealing with that, and that's with a traffic light.
Okay,
on the exit.
Yes.
People going 55 down the exit,
Yeah.
they would just they would just crash into the traffic light.
it's a thought.
I have another question about the Amtrak issue, you know, further up, there's the Amtrak bridge under the Greenway, just going through the George Washington Bridge. That got, it was demoted for being like in bad shape, and Amtrak the provisions to get that replaced in a formal way were back in 2009. So like, if DOT does arrange to get it at the Amtrak, with Amtrak, like, would there be an order of priority where like these, you know, nearly 2 decades old outstanding orders for Amtrak bridges? And would there be fixes, not just of this car issue, but of like other issues with Amtrak bridge within a couple miles this location?
I think they're probably focused on where there's the most urgent safety issue, but if there's like a particular location you want us to get a status update for, we can look into that with Amtrak.
Felipe, what are you asking us to?
I actually don't know, but, before that, can I just one question, just like a philosophical, like, if a certain piece of infrastructure fails. Like, is there, and this has happened, right, like the West Side Highway has collapsed, right, and we didn't rebuild it. This is what I'm envisioning, like, is there room for like repurposing this, that's like, or are we? Like, that's I guess the crux of the matter, like, what are we asking for? Like, are we asking for a specific outcome, or are we asking for like all options to be on the table? Like,
I think it would require study to really change it at all. It was a heavily used through fair, and we need to look at it from a traffic perspective and a feasibility perspective. If it, like, I think, you know, talking about fully closing it, talking about, you know, adding bike access, reducing the lane, like that all has different implications. And so I think anything we look at would need to be studied, and I think we'd want to consider in the context of all the feedback we're getting from all stakeholders. But yeah, so I think.
would you consider these 6 months that
As a
passed
study?
as data?
I think we could ask the team to consider it, but I like typically, you know, you'd want kind of different seasonality for such a study. And I honestly, like, I think it would depend on, you know,
Is there
what's being.
Anyway, this bridge is gonna get rebuilt, and reopened in the next 6 months. Because like, we'll have a year of data.
I can tell you that now.
Yeah, I don't know the extent of the repairs, so I don't know if it's something that can be done fairly quickly. I feel like Amtrak probably has like more quick contracting capacity than we do, and I don't know if this
It's
is
been
like.
6 months and there's no design. Like,
I mean, well, and I think. Maybe, I don't wanna speak for the whole board, but in the past, and less so with DOT, but in the past, historically. The community board has been, I think, sort of cut out of that process, and we get brought in when the final design is already locked in, and then it sort of seems like we're being obstructionist if we do raise any concerns or wanna have any input in projects. That I think that very much happened with the Cherry Walk redesign, like. Yes, it was parks and it was complicated, but it had implications for transportation with the detour and stuff like that. So I think if nothing else to take away from this would be, we would be very, very interested in being a part of the process. From the get-go,
Yeah.
as opposed to waiting until it's a settled matter.
So I guess maybe when a design comes out or a study comes forward, perhaps Lyle or somebody from DOT can present.
We can definitely share, but also if you have something you want us to look at, we can ask the team what flexibility there is.
Yeah, I mean, like, from my point of view, like, what I would like, it's like all options on the table, like.
Yeah.
You know, 1 lane, no lanes, back to 2 lanes how it was, make it a boulevard,
lane
and then you're
with
not
light.
talking about exits anymore, you're talking about intersections, you know, like they did with the Sheridan Expressway in the Bronx. So like, I mean, for me, like, I'm agnostic, like, but like, the more options on the table, the better.
Right.
Well, then the other option would be to write to it. I mean, there's nothing that says it can't go down on paper and go over to DOT as they look at it. But I think the question that came out of exec was sort of a simple question. What is the plan, or what is the status? The sense is it's unknown right now by the community board. So perhaps once DOT has an idea of condition, they can come back and report to the board. And I assume that will take place maybe in the next 6 months.
I imagine, I don't know, I mean, these things can take a while, I just don't wanna say nothing's happening for 6 months and then it ends up happening pretty quickly, I don't know how quick it's gonna happen, I know they're working on it though, and I think with any kind of safety structural issue, I think they try to work as quickly as they can.
And what would the process be for us, this committee, to either follow along or get involved in that design process? Because as was said earlier, we don't like being obstructionists, but we also don't like being shown the finished project and be like, it's this or nothing, vote. That doesn't really feel like a vote.
Yeah, I think if you guys, pass a resolution with some kind of request, we can see what's possible. Sometimes with emergency repairs, you might be a little limited in what you can do within a contract like that, but we can ask the team kind of what flexibility there is to do something different than what we have now.
Yeah.
So would the request be like having the team present to us? Is that what the resolution would call for?
And
That's
also
what I'm just
before,
wondering.
yeah, and also before the study, like, looking at all sworn possibility, maybe in the resolution that we submit, where we talk about the things that we'd like to see that for.
Okay.
To your point about seasonality, with the congestion pricing, they only actually measure the traffic downtown in October for 1 month. Everything else, they use their little formula to just impose a seasonal cycle. So, I mean, I would imagine that there was existing traffic data there that you could do something,
Yeah, there's probably a good amount of data, I just don't know if it's like as much as they need. I think it again depends on kind of what's being looked at.
Right.
So I think depending on the degree of what you're doing, there might be more analysis needed.
So before you said it's a heavily trafficked, who's used the term, it was kind of vague, is there a specific milestones that make it like?
I think something that's like an off ramp.
But there's, I mean,
Yeah, this one, we looked at the numbers and it's like 6,000.
I think just the proximity to the highway, sometimes you might look at it differently than you would like a side street.
Yeah, no, I understand. I was just saying, like, compared to other off ramps, this one has much lower volume.
Yeah.
I think that's what, like, is that what you were getting at?
yeah, that's where I'm getting
Yeah.
at, sorry.
Yeah, but maybe
Yeah.
just by sort of like roadway standards, I think it's often the proximity to the highway sometimes
Okay,
affects how it's treated in
Right.
a study.
So what's the next step on this? So,
I mean, like, I think like that's what I wrote, that like, that be it resolved that, we urge New York City's Department of Transportation to safely and rapidly address the structural issues with this exit and consider a solution that will not adversely affect the district, and that,
this is the rest that you wrote?
this is the reso, I don't know who wrote, this is the one that was presented at general board and I just modified it.
Yeah, oh, I see, okay, so this is the one that came to general board in December.
Yeah, and then we decided to table it and bring it to UST and bring it to LPP
Okay.
to like modify and then back to general board.
Okay,
Or back to exec and then back to general.
Does the modified reso now have language about your idea of having a bunch of different designs and options to look at?
Yes, including alternatives, mitigation measures, data supporting such proposals. To be presented at a public meeting and include input from stakeholders such as the NYC Parks and the National Rail Corporation prior to any permanent action.
alright,
And I generally don't know what flexibility there is in
Yeah.
this process, but we're happy to take a look and see
Yeah.
what is possible, but I just like, I'm not sure of the specifics of like the nature of the contract or Amtrak's role. So I just I would need to check.
yeah, set expectations, thank you for that.
Yeah,
So, well, this is not a resolution we're voting on, it's just like, so now this is going to landmark park.
yeah,
Okay, alright,
so I was into.
oh, great job, Ron, well, good,
Yeah.
So we don't need to pass it or anything?
no, because it's amendment to another, so who wrote this resolution? What-
I don't know,
It's just the one that you said popped up?
yeah,
Yeah,
Who wrote it?
that's really good questions. I have to, I don't know who wrote it.
Didn't it just come out of exec?
Yeah.
it came out of exec, but when you say who, I assume a person, right?
Yeah.
I never know who
Yeah.
the person is.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's fine,
But I can send it, I mean, if it eventually makes its way to that person, they can give me feedback.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay, we can ask you something.
because the way it's written is just from like a driver's perspective and, there's people who don't drive, who use this.
Yeah.
roadway.
Makes sense.
not even don't use it, are impacted by it.
Sure.
Just tell you, guys, over the weekend, I was around there and there was this like kick scooter brigade with moms and their kids.
Mhm.
Aw.
And, you know, it's kind of a nice area for kick scooter because normally as a mom who had kids on kick scooters, when they're on the sidewalks, you're always terrified they're gonna go a little bit too fast and like get over the sidewalk into the street.
Mhm.
And it's really, yes, it's not a relaxing experience as a mom, but that's so long that the kids can kind of, like, they have, it's a safe space. It's really,
That's
really
great.
nice.
I love that. So, okay, great. So thank you, Felipe, for bringing that to our attention. So the only other thing we have, is we've gone back at the top of the agenda to adopt the minutes from our December meeting. Do you have a motion to adopt the minutes?
Motion to adopt the minutes.
Where were they, Phil?
Juan sent them over, I think late last night or the night before.
Oh, I don't think I got them then.
Oh, you want,
Pending any friendly amendments.
okay, pending any
I
further.
trust you guys, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, thank you. By the way, so you know where the section is located, right? It was the backdrop of the press conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of funny, right?
So what?
During the press conference, the exit in question
Oh, yeah,
is,
yeah,
is the backdrop.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the funny part about it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, what's cool about this though is Parks went out and cleaned it up very nicely.
Yeah, the
Right,
garbage,
yeah,
like garbage, yeah.
The end of it, you get just around that bend.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, it's the,
Ira.
when it rains and then the runoff is going there and without the cars coming, there's just like a lot of dirt and rocks.
Oh, so I'm not sure if this is, does this suggest that there's a stoplight?
There is a stoplight right there.
Oh, there is?
And people blow through it all the time and crash into that intersection.
I've ever seen.
I didn't, like, who made the, I made the motion to adjourn, here,
Second, somebody has to second.
Second.
okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned at,
Daniel, thank you very much.
bye now. Yeah. It's normally not like this. Oh, yeah, it's not normally like this.
So much worse.